What's up, everybody? Robert Van Valkenburgh here at Kogen Dojo on a Monday night with Luke Rinehart from Clinch Academy out in Frederick, Maryland. Thanks for coming out.
You bet, brother.
Yep. Like I always say, we have guest instructors here every Monday. Actually, next Monday, Helson Gracie's going to be here, so he's the guest instructor, but the honored guest, so to speak. So if anybody wants to come out for that, he's going to be here for adults from 7 to 9. It's $100 for visitors, $80 for Kogen members. But back to the man of the hour, I wanted to talk a little bit about Jiu-Jitsu. Luke's been doing Jiu-Jitsu a long time, a lot longer than I actually thought, based on reading his bio. Before UFC 1, you started doing Jiu-Jitsu?
Yeah, we started like 1992. I think UFC started 93, so yeah.
It's pretty cool. And you started originally doing karate with your father?
Yeah, I started when I was 5. That was like 1983. My father was teaching Tangsudo karate. So that's kind of where it all began. And through the years, he got into all kinds of different things.
Yeah.
And it was like 1992 where we started training jiu-jitsu from the Gracie VHS tapes.
Nice.
You know. That's all there was back then, you know?
Yeah. That's cool, though. And now it's turned into, you're a 3rd degree black belt.
Yeah.
Have your own academy. You took over the academy from your father as time went on?
It was in 1997 he started something called Self-Defense Tactics Incorporated. And so it was kind of like a mixed martial arts style in the sense, you know, he got into a lot of different things, and it was really based on practical self-defense. So, and then once like the UFC started, you know, we were doing all the bare knuckle fighting and everything. So but yeah, 1997 that started, and then I kind of started taking that over in 2000, 2003, established the Clinch Academy.
Yeah, nice. And you know, it's funny how like marketing and branding works, right? The first time that I heard of your school, we were at I was with my brother at a good fight tournament, and we saw your name on one of your gis or a shirt or something. Like, that's a cool name for a school. That's a really good idea, you know. And it just kind of stuck with me. And then, you know, as we opened the school and become friends with different owners and watch how people do things and stuff like that. And you know, you put out really good videos on Instagram and stuff like that. I've always paid attention to that stuff. But you know, branding and marketing really does make a big difference, because it was, for a grappler, like, it was a really good idea that I wish I thought of myself, you know? So with the amount of time that you've been doing jiu-jitsu, would you say that your focus has changed over time from, like, or would you say even jiu-jitsu has changed over time since you started?
For sure. I mean, like I said, when we first started, it was very self-defense oriented, you know, very kind of rough and aggressive, bare knuckle fighting, you know, and you know, that was kind of one of my transitions to Clinch Academy was, you know, from self-defense tactics to Clinch Academy. My mind was already changing a little bit to the public, a little bit more, you know, where I was thinking, okay, well, we can have like jiu-jitsu classes, and we can have, you know, striking classes. We don't have to always blend them in, because we always blended it. You know, the striking, it was never separate when I first started learning it. So I mean, you learn distance management really well that way.
Right,
you
rolling with punches.
Wasn't really good for new clients, you know. So the way that we practiced it then, anyway. So I kind of like moved over a little bit more to the sportive aspects of it, but we still kept the combatives within our curriculum. So everybody learns the self-defense and the combatives, but we also kind of, you know, beyond that, you know, hopefully I'm never gonna. I've been doing martial arts since 5 years old. I've never been in a real fight, you know what I mean? Like, I've been in altercations where, you know, verbally, you know, could dissolve it, but I've never had to really defend myself physically. So I see martial arts kind of like, you know, as a life art, something that, you know, can better your everyday life. It doesn't necessarily just have to be self-defense, you know. So jiu-jitsu, I feel like, you know, just even as you age in it, it looks a little different, you know what I mean?
For sure.
So, like, you want to continue doing it. You don't want to be injured. You know, when you have children, you don't want to go home and, like, tell them to get off of you because you're hurting. You know what I mean? So
your wife starts to have less and less sympathy as time goes on.
So you want to make it a life practice. So the approach you take is very important. And even with the young guys who can go harder, you know, just trying to teach them wisdom that, you know, it's better to tap out than to pop your elbow, or, you know, you're supposed to tap before it hurts. That's the point of the tap, you know, to be safe.
Especially just in class, like this has actually come up. I mean, this could be the subject of easily a book or an entire podcast in and of itself, but like talking to all these different owners and black belts and brown belts, and that it's come up over and over and over again, training for longevity, not training for, like, the role in the school is not, that's not where you're gonna make like your fame. It's not gonna make where you're gonna make your reputation. It's not where you're gonna make your money. Like, it's just not it, you know. So train to get better. Don't train like, you know, train like your life depends on it, but that should mean longevity.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you're obviously gonna be able to continue training and learn a lot more if you're healthy.
Right.
Your body's in good condition.
Yeah. Injuries don't make you stronger.
Yeah.
So, if you could go back, like, that aside, if you could go back to when you first started doing jiu-jitsu or even martial arts in general, what would you tell yourself that you know now? Like, what do you wish you knew then that you know now, aside from, like, the longevity thing?
I feel like for me personally, when I first started, because I didn't have a jiu-jitsu instructor, I kind of felt like I always had something to prove, in a sense, you know, through my abilities and through my instruction. So I took it pretty seriously, I guess, you know, and I think for the time being it was important for me, and then I started competing and doing all that as well. I felt like I had to prove myself, in a sense. These days I don't feel that way at all, you know. I feel like it's not really about that at all. It really is about just bettering yourself, you know, helping to be a kind of like a light in the community, to better provide something positive and good for everyday people, you know, to come in and do, and not have to worry about, like you said, when you're out on the mat, this is a life or death, you know, situation, you know, where it should be pretty playful. And I've learned that you actually learn a lot more when it is playful.
Yeah.
However, for those young people who can do it a little bit more aggressive and still kind of, you know, you don't tend to get hurt as much, if you can do that safely and still be aggressive about it, there's a lot that you gain from that. Whereas if you start jiu-jitsu at like age 40 or something, that you may never get that under your belt.
Right.
So you have black belts that are going to look different depending on what age they started and what kind of approach to the art they were taking from the beginning.
Yeah.
You know, I feel like I kind of been through the, you know, a very strong self-defense part of it, you know, where it was very realistic fighting, and then into the sport of it, you know what I mean, focusing on the sport of jiu-jitsu, and then, you know, just moving into the life art, you know, and the playful practice of it.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. And I mean, would you say that jiu-jitsu itself has changed the longer that you've done it? I mean, obviously it started out with, you know, UFC and like you're saying, bare knuckle fighting and stuff like that, but nowadays I see a lot, especially in the no-gi community, there's so much innovation and things like that, and a lot of the self-defense people sort of diss on that, but I think also that's where, like, that's what's going to keep the sport alive, or the art alive, is that people are fascinated by the new things that they can come up with, you know. But do you feel like some of the changes that have happened over time are a good thing or a bad thing, or is it just kind of is what it is?
I feel like the change is always good, but within the change you just don't want to forget about the foundation,
right?
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, not everybody does it for self-defense,
right?
You know, as much as you want people to do it for self-defense, and you want them to get self-defense out of it, and to
especially be able to, kids and stuff like that.
Yeah, to be able to effectively defend yourself with something like this, but at the same time, it's not why everybody does it. Some people simply come for the community aspect, the hobby, you know what I mean, and they just want something to do. And sometimes the cookie cutter aspects of the self-defense versus the innovation of the art, you know, they're not always in sync together. But I think, you know, in our school we do, our combatives is, you know, we focus more on self-defense,
right,
and then they kind of move into the master series, which gets a little bit more into the innovation and the art of it all. So
are you affiliated with the Gracie Academy?
No.
Okay. Sorry, those are just words that I've heard them use quite a bit.
Yeah, definitely.
So who are you under currently?
So Leo Dalla is kind of like our umbrella under Big Brothers.
Okay.
But, you know, with my story, you know, I never really had a jiu-jitsu instructor.
Yeah.
So the way that all worked out for me was, you know, started training jiu-jitsu in 1992, 2005 is when I came across Leo Dalla. So I've already done competed from like 97 to like 2005, and one of my students was traveling from Woodbridge to Frederick, and he found Leo Dalla in Woodbridge. He was asking me, but I was like, yeah, man, you should go train with that guy, you know. So eventually I went over there too, and he introduced me, and you know, then I just kind of started going there to roll as I was getting ready to do a match with Pablo Popovich in Florida, and just rolled there a while, and then, you know, kind of kept that relationship. Would go there here and there, not really taking classes, but going during like some of their competition team training and things like that. And then it was 2011 that I approached Dalla, and I was just like, you know, because I never called what I did Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Oh, okay.
You know, it was always we had self-defense tactics, and then we had Clinch Academy, and we taught freestyle Jiu-Jitsu.
Okay.
And it was still a lot different in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in the sense that, you know, we did all the leg lock, we did everything,
right.
You know what I mean? And so when I approached Dalla, I was like, hey, you know, I want to do something about this. I want to pursue a rank somehow, and I wasn't sure how to go about it. And you know, I was like, can I do that through you in some way? And he told me, he's like, you were a black belt when I met you, but I wouldn't actually feel comfortable giving you a black belt because I've never taught you jiu-jitsu.
Right.
You know, so he was like, you know, and you kind of done that on your own. You deserve your own credit for it, you know. So what he came up with was that we would go through the IBJJF federation, and he said, you know, he's like, I believe you're a black belt when you walked in my door, so I'll validate you as a second degree black belt. Nice. So my first jiu-jitsu black belt was a second degree black belt.
Well, you're talking about competing a lot and stuff like that, and do you think that that's an essential part of coming up in jiu-jitsu even today?
I think it's important to compete a little bit. You know what I mean? Because every time that you compete, you really do learn a lot about just a bigger picture of jiu-jitsu. It's really easy to get stuck into the patterns of your academy, that roll with the same people, do the same moves, you know, and you get a comfortable feeling with that. Whereas when you compete, it's uncomfortable, you know, mentally, but also just physically, it feels a lot different, you know, with somebody that you've never done it before with. You know? So I think there's a lot to learn from it, and I think it definitely refines your mindset on the game, and ultimately your practice and your overall jiu-jitsu.
So with we were talking about innovation a little bit earlier. You're going to be teaching your Rodeo Guard tonight, which is something you came up with, right? So tell me a little bit about that. Like, how did that come about? What is it?
Yeah, so I always like to do omoplatas, and you know, kind of rolling around with bigger guys or even just more skilled guys. You know, most people either, like, you go to omoplata, which is a fairly easy situation to go to, but not always easy to finish. You know, so they either, big guys will posture up real high, or the people will try to roll quick to get out. And so the Rodeo Guard kind of became this like omoplata position. Whereas when I'm getting to the omoplata position, it's a way to control and dominate people within the position itself. And then within that position, we'll see there's just many submissions that we can do, other than the omoplata being one of them. But there's many things that we can do based on, you know, I kind of through the years just refine, you know, they're going to try to do this to get out, they're going to try to do this to get out, they're going to try to do this, and everything has a submission attached to it.
So do you feel that specializing in jiu-jitsu is a good thing? And if so, like, at what point should you do that? You know what I mean? Like, you kind of found that you really like omoplatas, you know, things like that. I know guys that triangles are what they're going to do all day long. Kimuras are what they're going to do all day long. And they're some of the best people that I've rolled with have like a specialty, but you also have to have a good base, right? So at what point do you think people should start thinking about the thing that they really like to do as opposed to the thing that maybe is just being passed on to them?
Yeah, I always tell my students is like, when you reach black belt, you know, the only techniques that you're a black belt in are the ones you learned as a white belt. You know what I mean?
Fair enough.
So they're the only ones that have been through the fire all this time.
Right.
You're going to learn moves as a brown belt that are, you know, at white belt level, and black belt do moves at white belt level. Now, because of your experience and mechanics and sensibility, all those things, you can bring those techniques up pretty fast.
Right.
You know, but I tell people, like, when I'm trying new techniques, I often will I'll start with the white belts. You know what I mean?
Right.
So let's see how it feels when a white belt,
Yeah.
and then I'll move to a blue belt, and then I work my way up with it. Whereas if I have a new technique I'm working on, I try it on one of my black belt students, it's not going to work so well.
Feels like a terrible
Yeah,
technique, right?
You got to bring it up the ladder, just like everything else, you know. So, so you always got to practice those core white belt techniques. I mean, your triangles and your kimuras and your arm bars, your lapel chokes. I mean, I think everybody needs to master those.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And as far as innovation is concerned, I feel like, you know, when you're like a really strong purple belt, brown belt, where you really have played around a lot with the core,
The basics.
you might find things that you tend to just lean to.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And when that's the case, then I always say, you know, you should be always practicing your best move and your worst move. That's like the two things you want to practice all the time. You know,
Good.
take your best move and keep making it better. Keep answering all the questions. You know, what if they do this? What if they do that? You know, go really deep with your best move. And then, you know, maybe you suck at getting out of crossbody. Well, drill that a lot.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
And that's going to change.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you'll get better at that. And okay, now I'm going to work on, you know, getting out of triangles. You know, then that's going to get better. So if you kind of keep your mind on those two things, you tend to continue growing pretty well.
Yeah, that's a really good piece of advice. I haven't heard that actually before. Focus on those two ends of the spectrum.
Yeah.
So, well, you're going to be teaching Rodeo Guard tonight. You guys are out in Frederick, Maryland.
Mm-hmm.
Is it clinchacademy.com?
Clinchacademy.com.
Yep.
Yeah, and I actually do. I just started like a teachable Clinch University website.
Nice.
And the first course that I have on there is Rodeo Guard. So
Good.
That's clinchuniversity.com.teachable. No, clinchuniversity.teachable.com.
Okay, good. Yeah.
So people that are interested in Rodeo Guard, they can find it on there.
Nice. And you have anything else coming up at your school? Any events? Anything like that coming up? Seminars?
Not at the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, nothing too crazy going on. This is actually kind of a little bit of we just had a bunch of stuff going on, so it's a little bit of a downtime, which is nice.
Good, good. Well, check out Luke's Academy out in Frederick, Maryland. If you're out there, come visit us in Sabrina Park, 549 Baltimore Annapolis Boulevard, KogenDojo.com. Like I said, Hells and Gracies is going to be here on Monday. And then in May, we have Dave Porter coming out for our leg lock seminar. There's another really big seminar we're working on. We're having a little bit of technical difficulty with that, but we'll see if we can get through it. And, you know, always come out and check us out. Friendly school, clean. Try to maintain the courtesy and respect. You're not going to get mauled here. People tend to be pretty nice. So, thanks again.
Yeah, thank you, brother. Appreciate it.
Awesome.